Firebase spending limits, perhaps the most requested feature on Firebase's subreddits. And with reason, nobody wants to end up with a massive Firebase bill, and the horror stories don't help. I chose Firebase, as most of you guys, for its user friendliness, and it was frustrating to say the least that capping Firebase billing is as complex as it is. I mean, it should just be a button in the dashboard, am I right? And changing from the Spark plan to the Blaze plan is a big deal, and the fear of accruing a bill of thousands of dollars due to an accidental loop or a DDoS attack is very real. And to add to it, most of their documentation on the subject is not up to date. Thankfully, there was an official YouTube series by a Firebaser named Todd. I mean, the series is really good, and most of the things in the tutorial that I'll present here were grabbed from those videos. However, there are some really big problems with the series as well. The first one is, it was made using Cloud Functions v1, so it's outdated as of 2023. Number 2, no GitHub repo with the code from the tutorial was provided. This means that you had to follow along with every video and code simultaneously. Number 3, alerts were set up with Slack. And this is not really an issue, it comes down to personal preference, but I'm more of a Discord fan, because, well, it's free. Number 4, the series is really long. I mean, 7 20+ minute videos are enough to make most people give up on a subject. And now that I think about it, maybe they did that on purpose. Just look at the comments from the last video in the series. People are really frustrated. But you know, I'm sure the Firebase team has their reasons, and I obviously would never take sides. Jokes aside, folks, I truly believe it's important to bring awareness to this issue, because Firebase has essentially been ignoring a lot of requests from developers for a simpler and more reliable way to cap billing on projects. And responses from Google Cloud and Firebase employees on Reddit showed that they see the scalability of Firebase as one of its most important factors. So they prefer to forgive huge accidental bills rather than giving you an easy way to cap billing on your project. But as a Google Cloud employee mentioned, waiving costs is done on a case-to-case basis, so it is never certain that they'll help you if things go bad. But that's enough complaining, folks. There's only so much we can do about it, and it's unlikely that a video from such a small channel will have any impact on the decisions that Firebase team makes. The best we can do right now is just take it as a learning opportunity, right? I ended up learning a bit more about Firebase functions in the Google Cloud Console, and I'm pretty excited to share with you guys. But before kicking off the tutorial, I'd like to make a few disclaimers. This is not a solution, it's a workaround. You may lose data by removing your billing account, and it will essentially shut down your project until you re-enable billing. Well, at least the services that go beyond the free tier. But that, in my opinion, is a reasonable price to pay for the inner peace it'll give you. So fear not, my friends, because I'll help you enable billing on your project and still sleep at night. But before we get started, if you prefer to read documentation instead of watching the video, I'll leave a link to my repo called Cap Firebase Billing on GitHub, and you can just follow the steps in the readme.md. And yeah, but if you choose to stay on the video, it'll be definitely easier to follow along, and who knows, maybe you'll learn a thing or two. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first step is to create a Firebase project. So I'll just create a new one here. The name of my project will be Cap Firebase Billing. See, oh wow, it's not taken. All right, awesome. I don't care about analytics. Let's just create our project. It'll be as simple as possible, just to demonstrate the ability to downgrade our plan automatically if our costs reach a certain threshold that we will set up. Okay, now that we have set up our application, our first step will be to upgrade to the pay-as-you-go, also known as the Blaze plan. So we'll click on Usage and Billing, and we'll go to Details and Settings tab, and we'll click on Modify Plan. We'll choose the Blaze plan, and you can just select your billing account you want to use, and you will now be charged based on your usage, and that's okay. And you'll click on Purchase, and you have successfully upgraded your project. All right. And this is probably a step that you already have taken if you're watching this video, but I just wanted to go from the start. Our next step will be to create a budget and link a PubSub topic to it. So we'll click on Create First Budget down here, and this will open the Google Cloud Console. Naming. So I recommend you guys to call your budget like your project name and then space cap. That'll be enough to differentiate it, because like if you come back here, you will see all your budgets from like different projects. So it's good to have the project name before it, so like you can just like see right here what exactly is the project that you're looking for. So coming back here to create budget, I will call my project name, so it'll be cap Firebase billing, and then cap. Okay, and down here in time range, I'll keep it as monthly. You can choose whatever you want. You can have a monthly, a quarterly, a yearly, or even like a custom range budget. But a monthly is pretty fine by me. So down here, we'll select a project. Definitely select one here. Keep it all services and keep this discounts and promotions and offers checked. Let's go to the next step, and we will now specify the amount of our budget. So I'll put it as $10. You can do this, you can set this whatever you want. Let's go to the next step, and all right, so now we can set alert threshold rules. And we have a few defaults. The defaults are 50%, 90%, and 100%. This means that when your billing reaches 50% of your budget, you receive a notification, same as 90 and 100%. So you can customize it to whatever you want. Just make sure you keep this checkbox down here checked. It'll email you an alert whenever any of the thresholds is reached. All right, and now off to the next step in this budget section, which will be to connect a PubSub topic to this budget. So we will check this box down here, and we will select a Cloud PubSub topic. We'll switch projects. Mine is, oh, it is showing up here, but I think last time it wasn't. So if it doesn't show up here, just go to this All tab, and it'll be here too. So I'll just click here on Cap Firebase Billing. And I have no available topics in this project. I will just create a new one, and I will call it billing. Okay, and keep this checked. Google Manage Encryption Key. I'll just click on Create. And all right, we have successfully created our PubSub topic and linked it to our budget. All right, so let me just quickly go over what we just did here, because a lot of you might not know what a PubSub topic is. So I'll just bring up Excalidraw up here. And all right, so what exactly is PubSub? PubSub is a Google Cloud service that pretty much allows you to send and receive messages. So when we create a PubSub topic, which will be this, and now let me just bring up text here. So we topic. Okay, so this is our billing topic. It's essentially a channel from which we will send a bunch of messages. Some of them will be auto-generated by Google Cloud, and we will also send some of those for testing later on. But essentially is like a topic is a place where you can pretty much send messages, and we'll have a cloud function down here. Let me just get this. That will listen to any new messages, and we'll get those messages, and we can do whatever the logic that we want. So in our case, we want to unlink a billing account from our project whenever a certain project cost is reached. So in every one of those messages, we will have some data as like cost, our budget, if any thresholds have been reached, and all that kind of stuff. And then we will listen to those messages in our cloud function, and then we will have our logic accordingly. So hopefully that clears up a bit. And yeah, and just all those messages are all in JSON, and we will definitely look at those later on when we're testing, but it's just good to have an idea of what a PubSub topic is and what our plan is pretty much. So I'll just click on finish down here. Okay, now that we already have our budget set up and a billing PubSub link to it, let's start creating our cloud function. So I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm just gonna call it cap, just like my Firebase project name. So cap Firebase billing. I'll go into it, and this is a nice little trick on Windows. You can just type CMD up here, and it'll open the command prompt in that location. All right, and let's start. I'll go back to the documentation. It's been a while since I've created Firebase functions. All right, so I'll start by doing npm install -g Firebase tools because it might not be updated. And I'll come back when it's over. And I'm back. Okay, so let's continue. Initializing our projects. Let me just make sure I'm logged in. Already logged in, good. Okay, so my next step will be to just run Firebase init functions. We won't need Firestore right now. Let's just go ahead and Firebase init functions. Yes, use an existing project. I will choose cap Firebase billing. And I will choose TypeScript. No ESLint. Do you want to install dependencies? Yes. Okay, I already finished installing. So I'll just cd into functions. And I will open VS Code. Okay, cool. We have our index.ts here. So I'll just quickly go over why I chose TypeScript, because I used to be more of a JavaScript fan, but type safety just goes a long way with Firebase, and especially with like code that you need to deploy, because like sometimes it works locally, but doesn't work in the servers. And I mean, it's way better to just like catch some errors during development time and not during runtime. Okay, now that we have successfully initiated our Firebase project, we can now open a terminal here and install the dependencies that we'll use. It will just be 2. I chose to keep this project really lightweight, so we use at google-cloud/billing. This is for reading your billing information from Google Cloud and for disabling it eventually. And the second one will be Discord's API types. Oh, and something I forgot. We need to cd into functions. So I'm going to copy this and I'll cd into functions here, or else our command will not even have an effect. It will probably install them globally. So yeah, make sure you cd into functions and run this command right here. And Discord API types, I chose to not install Discord.js because, I mean, since we're only, we're pretty much just sending post requests to a webhook URL we'll get from Discord. So it's a really simple thing that we need to use. So I chose to just use the types, make this project more lightweight. All right, so let me just check our package JSON here. And yeah, we have installed both of the packages that we'll need. And awesome, let me close this and get back to our index.ts. Oh, and let me make this bigger for you guys. So Control-Shift+. This should probably be enough for you guys to see better. All right, let's start by removing these comments here because we won't need those, and that as well. And we won't need on request. And let me disable my GitHub Copilot, or else there will be no tutorial. And we'll keep the import for Logger, and we'll use Logger for pretty much logs on server side that we'll be able to see on the Google Cloud dashboard later. We'll use it for testing. Very important. And yeah, so we can start by importing on message published from Firebase functions/v2/PubSub. If you're wondering how I get the auto formatting, it's an extension from VS Code called Prettier. I definitely recommend you check it out. But now let's actually create our PubSub listener. I'll call it exports.handle billing alert. And this will be on message published. And now you'll need the topic name. So let me just check on topics. Select a project up here. We'll select cap Firebase billing. And this is it, yeah. So now we can see our topics. Here's our topic name. I'll copy to clipboard, and this is what we need up here. And our second parameter will be a callback function that will have an event parameter. And from this event parameter, we can extract something that I will call event data. So const event data equals event.data.message.json. And as I mentioned before, all our messages published on our PubSub topic will be JSON. So this pretty much just extracts that from the alert that we'll receive through the PubSub. Okay, awesome. Let's actually add some logs up here. Always good to add some logs up here. So I'll do logger.debug. And we have a few options in Logger. We have logger.error, info, log warn write. But I definitely recommend you guys use debug. That'll make a clear distinction from what's being logged by you and what's being auto-generated by Firebase, because there are a lot of info auto-generated logs by Firebase. So first off, I'll just log handle billing alert. We'll just, okay, so when we actually call the function, we'll see that it logs in there. And let's also log event data. So we'll come down here and event data. And all right, I'd say the next step is to actually give this event data type, because right now it has a type of any, which is not good for IntelliSense and not good for us in general. So let me just come up here. I think it was called automated cost control. Yeah, this is probably going to open the right link. Of course, this link will be also in the description, but a lot of this is deprecated, as I mentioned before. We can still use some of this stuff though. So this is a notification format that we'll receive. This will be auto-generated by Google Cloud every, I think it was every 50 minutes, the last time I checked. So yeah, this is the notification JSON that we will receive and we'll extract through event data here. So let me just come to the notification format here, and yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And let's actually make a type. That'll make our life a lot easier. So I'm gonna make another file here and I'll call it billing.ts. And let's export a new type. Okay, let's begin. And yeah, the reason we're doing this is because Google Cloud doesn't really provide a type that we can just import. It will definitely make our life a lot easier, but well, it is what it is. So our budget display name will be a string. Yeah, I forgot to give it a name. So let's call it billing notification data and equal to, of course. Okay, next off we have cost amount. Let me just copy this, and this will be a number. And this is also required, so we'll leave it as is. Next off, we have cost interval start. This will be a string and will be always present, so leave it as is. Next off, we have budget amount, which is also a number and will always be present. Oh, forgot the colon here. Right, semicolon, next line. Budget amount type would actually be enum. Okay. So we can actually define those 3 strings up here. So I'll copy this first one here, which is specified amount, which will be our case, but it's just good to limit it to the possible formats. And this is how you define enums on TypeScript, as far as I know. We only use one of the OR symbols. Okay, and semicolon and next property. Alert threshold exceeded. And I think this one is optional. So it says here, the highest, this key is not present if the actual cost does not exceed any threshold. So this will be an optional property. So the way we do that is just by having an interrogation mark before this. And I believe this will also be a string. Let me see here. No, it will actually be a number. That was my bad. Yeah, so number. And the same thing for forecast threshold exceeded. So I'll just type Shift Alt down to create the same line, and I'll replace this right here. And last one, currency code. This will also be always present. So this will not be optional, and this will be a string. Okay, awesome. We've created our type. Let me just save this. So now we can actually give our event data a type of billing notification data. And the reason why I divided this into 2 files is because, well, if you actually start using Firebase functions, it's just good to have it more compartmentalized, because your index.ts just starts growing really fast, and it's just good to have some, just the functions in the index.ts, and more specific stuff just put in a more specific file. Okay, so let's create a const called budget exceeded. And this will be equal to event data dot cost amount is greater than or equal to event data dot budget amount. And you can customize this to be just like greater than, but I'll just choose to keep it greater than or equal to. And you can see how TypeScript helps us with the IntelliSense. We have up here cost amount. We can see all the properties that we defined in the other type right there, and it just makes our life way easier and shows that we are in the right direction. And then now that we have our budget exceeded, if we'll say this will be a Boolean, so we can just do if budget exceeded. Then we will disable billing if it is enabled. And this follows the same flow as the documentation gives us, and we'll actually use some of that documentation right now. As I said before, link in description. So let me just find it. Yeah, this is what we're looking for. We will need to start building that in our billing.cs file. So these two functions right here, is billing enabled and disable billing for project. Okay, so let me just copy these two into billing.ts. We'll definitely have a bunch of errors right off the bat. And we will also need some of these up here. Okay, let me just paste these imports and constants up here. Instances client, I'm not sure what this was for, but I don't think we need it. And let me just convert this to ES6 format. And all right, so project ID will be process.env.google cloud project. This is deprecated, does not exist anymore. We need to use gcloud project. Yeah, so this is a default Firebase environment variable. And yeah, the previous one is deprecated. And we have our project name up here, and our billing is a new cloud billing client. Okay, awesome. We already installed this module up here. Let's check our functions. Okay, so is billing enabled? Let's take a look at this. So it takes in a project name, and why is it hasn't any type? So I'm actually not even going to have this parameter here because we're only going to use these functions for a single project. So I don't think it should even take a parameter. We'll just use our constant up here. So project, it was project name, right? Yeah, so project name. We'll just use the constant that we defined up here. Okay, so all the errors went away. Let's convert this to a logger. Oh, whoops, yeah, this is not the logger I want. Just go back to index.ts and copy this import up here. Because yeah, as I mentioned before, console.log will not work on Firebase functions. Whoops, yeah, so logger.debug. And let me make this into a template literal. And where's the error? Catch E. I'll make this error. And let's also print out the error because this wouldn't be too helpful without knowing what actually happened. Okay, so here's what's going to do. This function is pretty much going to check if our billing is enabled. So this will use a cloud billing client to get our project billing info. And we might get some authentication issues, but I think I've covered everything that we need to do. And if it is unable to determine if billing is enabled, so if it, like this function throws an error right here, then we should return false. We should return that billing is not enabled. And of course, let's export this. Okay, and this one right here, I won't need these comments right here because I'll do the same thing as we did up there because I won't take a project name as a parameter. Because, I mean, we're only going to have these functions running for a single project, so there's really no need to have that there. So name will be project name, and what's the issue? Oh yeah, I remember this. I remember this from Todd's video, so they really haven't changed it yet in the documentation. So yeah, this was resource, you need to change it to project billing info. So what this function will do is it will unlink your billing account from your project. So the way it does that is just setting our billing account name to be an empty string. And yeah, this comment's pretty redundant. And I'll use the same format as we did on the isBillingEnabled function. So we'll have a try catch error. Okay, so I'll move all of this into here. Well, actually, I don't need the res. I will just have a logger.debug up here. And I'll say billing was successfully disabled. And in the catch block, I'll have a logger.debug. And it'll say something went wrong. Whoops. Went wrong while disabling billing. And let me actually make this a template literal because just way better. And let's have our error here. And yeah, I've tested this, and when it goes wrong, it actually does throw an error when it's unable to update the project billing info. So this logger would run instead of this one. And of course, let's export our newly created disable billing function. And let's rename this. It's just like disable billing. Disable billing for project is just redundant. And we won't need this res here. So let's just await billing. And let's actually log our billing info up here. So logger.debug. And let's have billing info. And this will be res. So our two functions are set up. We have our building blocks for our initial implementation of our PubSub function. So what we'll do if budget is exceeded is, and actually since I don't want to have a bunch of if statements, like if is billing enabled, then disable billing, I'll actually name this maybe disable billing. And let me create a const up here, and it'll be is billing enabled. Just actually billing enabled to avoid confusion. And this will be equal to await is billing enabled. And we won't need to export this because it will only be used locally. And of course, we need to call it. And then if billing is not enabled, we will return. So do not go forward with disabling billing if billing is not enabled. That will be our flow. So going back up here, if our budget is exceeded, we will call maybe disable billing. Now there are a few problems with this initial implementation, and we will handle them one at a time. So the first one is we're not actually notifying ourselves. It's good to keep track of our spending to avoid as much as we can to call this maybe disable billing function. So the way we'll do that is sending messages to a Discord channel that we will create using a webhook. So let's actually do that right now. So I'll open my Discord right here, and let's create down here on add a server. I'll click on create my own, and for a club or community, it doesn't really matter. So I will call this same as my Firebase project. So cap Firebase billing. And let's just wait. Okay, it was pretty instantaneous. And let's create another channel, and I will call this billing alerts. Because if you actually have a server, you probably don't want to have the messages sent to a general channel. So let's I clicked on this engine right here. So in edit channel, we'll click on integrations. We'll create a webhook, and I created one automatically for us. Let's copy this URL, and that's pretty much all we need from Discord for now. So let's go back to our code and add a .env file in the functions directory. And then inside it, let's create our Discord, all in caps, Discord webhook URL. And let's make it into a string for exactly what we copied in from Discord. And the reason why we put this in a .env is because this is considered sensitive information. You don't want anyone to have access to your Discord channel to send messages whenever they want. Let me save our index.ts here, and let's actually create a new file for handling our Discord. I'll call this Discord, whoops, still in caps, Discord handler.ts. So first off, let's create a generic function that we'll call send Discord message. And this function will take a parameter of data. And let me just create a body here. And data will actually have a type. It will not be any. We will import that from Discord API types, that module that we installed in the beginning. So the name of the type that data will be is pretty long, so I'll just paste it in here. I'll actually import it up here. It's REST post API webhook with token JSON body. So this is essentially the type of the body that we can send to the Discord webhook API. So I'll just import it from Discord API type /v10. And here it is. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. So we can have a few of these. We'll probably have the avatar URL, and then I think they have a content. Yeah, exactly. And then a username. We'll probably just use these three. But as I said before, it's just good to import those to prevent yourself from accessing a property that doesn't exist and eventually causing some issues during runtime. And let's actually get the logger import from index.ts as well. because I just love logging things. So let's go logger.debug, and just the name of the function for now. Okay, and we will actually use the fetch API to send the request. So the fetch API is available by default on Node.js, I think from version 18 or higher. I could be wrong. But yeah, so we can just make a fetch request without having to install any further dependencies. So the first parameter that we'll have up here is that the actual URL we want to send the request to. So that will be our environment variable. So let's access that through process.env. What did I call it again? I called it Discord webhook URL. So I'll just copy this and paste it right here. Next off, we'll have a object up here. And the first thing we'll have up here is a method. And this will be a method of post. And then we'll have some headers. I'm honestly not sure this is necessary, but I'll just have it in here. It's just content type. And the value is application/JSON. And our last parameter will be body, which we'll do JSON.stringify. And then we'll stringify our data parameter that we'll receive up here. But we still have one error up here because I believe this could potentially be undefined, but we can just fix that through assuring it will not be undefined. And of course, we get this error in the await here because we forgot to make our function asynchronous. So yeah, this is our generic send Discord message function. Next off, let's make another function called send Discord billing message. This method will only take a message, which will be a string. And yeah, we'll use send Discord message and we'll have some more specific details. And now that I think about it, our send Discord message function should take another parameter called webhook URL. It will be a string. Because we want this function to be as generic as possible, and our environment variable has the billing channel in mind. So we'll just copy this, actually cut this, and paste the webhook URL here instead. And then we will call have a const webhook URL down here, and this will be equal to the process.env.discord webhook URL, and we will actually call this Discord message function with this parameter right here. So let's do that. Send Discord message, and our first parameter will be webhook URL that we just defined up there, and our second one will be an object. And now we will get that nice IntelliSense with all the available properties that we can send in the object to the Discord API. So let's do that. First off, let's define a username, and I'll define a username as Firebase billing. Next off, let's define I think it's content. Content. And the content will be essentially equal to our message. And last but not least, we'll have our avatar URL. And let's look for a nice Firebase logo that we'll have. Just search for Firebase logo and see if I can find something in the Firebase website, Firebase brand guidelines. Okay, I like this one. So let me just open this image in a new tab. Let's copy this address up here. And let's paste it here. I think our functions are all set Discord-wise. So let me just export this function right here. And I don't think we'll need to export send Discord message, at least for now. And let's save it. Now going back to our index.ts, let's add some additional logic here. So if our budget has been exceeded, we'll call maybe disable billing. And if it hasn't, we will send a Discord message. So send Discord billing message, and we will pass in a message of your current bill is at. So let's pass in a variable here, and we'll pass in event data dot cost amount. And let's actually add some more details in here. So I'll create a constant here called percentage used. And we'll set it to math.floor. And inside we'll have cost amount, event data dot cost amount divided by event data dot budget amount times 100. And then we can send some more information in our message. So let's say percentage used, percent of your budget has been used. And let's make this show up in a new line. All right, this looks good to me. We have your current bill is at event data cost amount, percentage use of your budget has been used. It's pretty thorough. Now let's add a message to the case where the budget has been exceeded. And our message will be a little bit different. So I'll make critical here. And let's make that bold, and we can do that by surrounding it with 2 stars. I don't know if this is Discord syntax or Markdown, but yeah, this makes it bold in Discord. And we'll say 100%, 100% of your budget has been used. Your current bill is at, and then we'll pass in another variable, which will be event data dot cost amount. And then we'll say in a new line, billing has been disabled. Oh, and actually let's add some more details to our cost amount. So I'll put another $sign up here, and let's put the actual currency. So that'll be event data dot currency code right here. And then I'll just copy this and put it in the message that we'll send below as well. So this one right here. So if you're, for example, you're like in Brazil, so it will show up, your current bill is at $sign and the amount and then BRL. Always good to be specific. You never know if someone misconfigures something and you're actually getting charged in a different currency code. Now this looks a lot better, but there's still some things that we need to address. So first off, I mentioned before that this topic is going to get a message sent to it automatically every 50 minutes or so. That's what I've been noticing in my latest project. So with our current code, we would get spammed on Discord, even if our cost amount does not change. So yeah, so the automatic messages that I mentioned, they are sent regardless if your cost amount goes up or not. So you could have like a bunch of messages saying like your cost amount is 0, and well, that's not good. It's just noise, right? And the easiest way to prevent that from happening is to have a few records on either Firestore or on real-time database. And then we'll be able to compare our current cost amount that we'll get from the event data with our records on the database to see if it actually has increased or not. It's okay if it doesn't make sense to you right away, but it'll probably make more sense as we get actually coding. So first off, let's go back to our project. And on the official Firebase series, they use Firestore, but since we're only going to have 2 records, it'll probably be like 50 bytes on each document that will fetch. So I'll probably just keep it on real-time database because Firestore charges you per read and real-time database charges you per data transferred. So let's actually go back to our Firebase project, and yeah, let's create a real-time database. Let's create database. And I'm just going to choose the defaults, start in, it can be in locked mode. So starting in locked mode essentially means that it will deny any reads or writes from clients of the application, but since our code is running from the admin SDK, it'll just go around those rules, so we can just keep them as false, and only we will be able to access the node. So let's actually create that node right now. I'm just going to call it billing, the parent node, and then we'll have 2 child nodes. The first one will be last reported cost, and let's just set a value of 0 for now. And I guess I just need to press enter. And the second one will be last reported interval start. A bit long, and let's just set it to ABC. This will be changed whenever we get the first report. And we're gonna need this last reported interval start because, well, if the month changes or like the period that you're tracking your budget on changes, we don't want to be comparing to the last reported cost that we have on the database. We want to reset it to 0 because, well, it's a new period, right? So going back to our code, first things first, I'm going to go to, actually, let me save this, and I'm going to go to billing.ts, and in here, I'm going to create another type. So I'm going to export type, and I'm going to call it billing node. And let's set it to a new object, and let me just copy these 2 property names here. This will be a number. No, actually, this will be a string. And the second one is just like last reported cost, and this will be a number. Now let's save this and go back to our index.ts. And we'll need to fetch data from the real-time database whenever this function is called. So first off, we need to make some imports. We'll import get database from Firebase admin database. And before fetching, let's define a constant that will hold the billing node's reference. So billing ref equals get database dot ref. And then inside, we'll just have the path to our node, which is just billing. Now let's actually fetch that billing data by defining a constant here, and we'll call it billing data. And this will be equal to our billing ref dot once, and then inside we'll have value. And of course we need to await this, and that means we need to make this function asynchronous. And also let me just wrap this in parentheses and call .val here. It'll just make our life easier so that we don't need to call .val in a different constant. And of course, let's give our billing data a type that we just defined on billing.ts, and this will be billing node. That means we'll get that nice auto completion, and we can now extract those two properties we have from our billing data node. So let's make a new constant here, and let's extract those two. Let me just make an equal sign so we'll get that nice IntelliSense. So it'll be equal to billing data, and then just control space will give us the options that we need. So we have these two right here. And you can disregard this error, it's just saying that the elements are unused, but that's just for the moment being. And now that we are actually fetching this data before we have any additional logic up here, we need to update the billing node whenever we actually send an alert, right? So down here after the two conditionals, I'm going to add an await billing ref. So the billing ref that we have up here, update. And I'll just copy the properties from up here. I'll get first last reported cost, and we will get those two properties from the most recent data, which is from event data. So we'll get event data dot cost amount, and this will be, oh, I need some comma, and last reported interval starts, and that will be also equal to event data, and then we will get, whoops, event data dot cost interval starts. And now we can prevent that spamming of messages with a simple if statement. We can do if the budget hasn't been reached, exceeded actually, and our event data dot cost amount minus our last reported cost is smaller than a certain threshold. Let's actually make that a constant right now. So I'll come to billing.cs up here. I'll try to make it as intuitive as possible. So let's export a constant, and let's call it all in caps min diff, well, actually min cost diff for alerts. And for now, I'll just set it to 1, but you can customize this to whatever you want. Let's save this file, and in here we can just have our min cost diff for alerts. So if our budget has not been exceeded and the event data dot cost amount, so the current cost of the project minus the last reported cost, is smaller than the threshold that we defined, the min cost difference for alerts, we will simply return, still in caps, will return. So the rest of the function will not run, and we will not get sent another Discord message. And what's wrong here? Oh, of course, I defined this after calling it. So yeah, let's move budget exceeded to the top here. And now our logic is almost perfect, but there's still a problem. When we move from one period to the next, from one interval start to the next, for example, from 1 month to the next month, we do not want to keep track of the same last reported cost. For example, let's say that you spent $8 on your project last month, and then you move months. Of course, they will get an event data cost amount of 0. And then this function, this conditional will always translate to true. So the rest of the function will never run, and we won't be getting those notifications. So let's actually make this constant declaration into a variable declaration, and let's check to see if our interval start has changed. So let's do constant is new billing cycle, and this will be equal to event data dot cost interval start is different from last reported interval start. In case you don't remember, this is a string, and it's essentially, it gives you the exact date, the exact moment of that period start. And if we're actually in a new billing cycle, so if is new billing cycle, we should set our last reported cost to 0 to make sure we get the notifications when the period changes. And now our function looks amazing, and I think we've covered everything in here, but just to be sure, I'm gonna add some more logs, and then we will finally deploy this. So first off, let's add a log up here, and let's log our billing data, so logger.debug, and then let's have a template literal inside and have billing data, and then a variable billing data. Next off, let's also log is new billing cycle. So let's do logger.debug is new billing cycle, and then have our actual is new billing cycle, and add a colon here too. And something I forgot that we need to change in our Discord handler is we need to make this function asynchronous, and we should also await send Discord message in here. And let's save this and go back to index.ts, and let's also await send Discord message. This is good because if we have some function running and like it throws some kind of error, we might not get like the appropriate logs from the server side. So we should also always await our function calls. And actually, we could probably just bundle this into a bunch of promises and use promise.all in here, because Node.js runs asynchronously, and Firebase functions also charges us for CPU seconds. So it's definitely a good idea to optimize this as much as we can. So I'm gonna make another constant here and call promises, and this will be just an empty array. And let me define the type in here as well. It'll be defined as an array, array and of promise, and then we'll have any. And let me close both of these. And now instead of awaiting for these things, let's just do, I'll just press Ctrl D here and select all of those, and I'll do promises dot push and then open parentheses, and let's just close them individually. Replace this, and let's replace this as well. And then down here we can just await promise dot all and then promises. This will definitely reduce the number of milliseconds that it'll take to run our function, because it'll potentially run send Discord billing message and billing ref.update at the same time. One last thing I wanted to change in billing.ts is how we logged the errors for is billing enabled and maybe disable billing. Let's just change this debug to be a logger.error, because I mean we should just use the more specific logger function types, because like it makes more sense, right? If it's an error, let's do logger.error. So now let's save this, and I forgot to do something extremely important, and that is to initialize our application. We need to call initialize app, import this one right here from firebase-admin/app, and call this. And now we can finally deploy our function. So let's click on view, terminal, and let's type firebase deploy -- only functions and press enter, and let's wait for it to finish. Okay, perfect. Now we only need to do a few more things. We need to actually give the service account that's running our Firebase function authorization to access our billing information. So let's quickly open Cloud Functions up here. Just type Cloud Functions, and let's open the first one. And let's click on Handle Billing Alert, the function that we just created. And let's open details. And now we can see our service account here. It's this number, computes at developer.gserviceaccount.com. So let's open another Google Cloud Console tab, because we'll need to compare our service accounts. So let's actually open IAM. It's this option right here. It stands for Identity and Access Management. So I believe this is the function. Let's just make sure it is. 479, yes, it's the one. And we'll need to give it a permission, and this permission will be of, let me see, I think it's billing manager or something. Project billing manager. And let's save. We have now given our service account the permission to access and disable billing in our project. And one last thing we need to do is we need to search up here for Cloud Billing API. Yeah, select this one down here. And let's click on Enable. If you don't have this enabled, you won't be able to access your billing information. And now we can finally test our function. So let's come up here to PubSub, select this first one that shows up, and select our billing topic. And let's go to the messages tab. Let me just close these two up here so it gives us some more space. And let's click on publish message. And this message body, we can actually use this template right here and just change some of the properties. So I'm going to paste it here. Let's just change cost amount. Let's change it to 1.5. Just a reminder that my threshold was 1, so this should trigger an alert. And let's also change the budget amount. I think I set it to 10. And I'll change it to my currency, which is CAD. And it's the moment of truth. Let's click on publish. Message published. And well, I did not get the usual notification I get on Discord, but that could be because I have OBS running. So yeah, opening our Discord, we can see our notification here. So yeah, it really was OBS probably not showing the notification that usually shows up here. But yeah, we can see our message, your current bill is at 1.5 CAD and 15% of your budget has been used. All right, so let's actually test going over our budget now. Oh, we can also see the database. We can see that it was successfully updated, and there was actually a typo on last reported cost. I typed it as last reported cost, so let me just delete this one. This was the one that was actually updated by our code, so it's working fine. So let me just come to functions down here, and let's take a look at our logs. And you can disregard these two errors here because this was just a mistake that I made on my first deployment. So it should be working perfectly now. And the only problem is that we're not getting some really good logs here from billing data and event data. That's because we should probably call json.stringify on them. So let's do that right now. Object is not nice. Where is it? Event data right here. So let's do json.stringify event data, and let's do the same for billing data. json.stringify billing data. So let me save this, and I'm just gonna run the previous command by pressing up arrow. So now press enter, and I'll wait for it to finish again. Okay, so it has finished deploying, and now actually before testing an exceeded budget, I'm gonna test just a small increase. So put 1.6 this time for the cost amount, and this should not trigger a notification. So I'll publish this, and let me just put the same currency as before, and I should not receive a notification this time. And as we can see, nothing happened. I still have the old notification here. And let's check the real-time database data. And you see that it has not been updated, and that's fine because it only updates for the last reported cost, and we did not report 1.6. And now let's finally test a cost amount that exceeds our budget. Wait, where was I? Here. So click on publish message again and copy the same format, and this time we'll have a cost amount of 11 and a budget of 10. Comma, and I'll keep the currency code as USD. And now let's publish, and this should effectively disable billing for our project. Let's open Discord again, and we can see a message saying critical. 100% of your budget has been used. Your current bill is at 11 USD. Billing has been disabled. Okay, so at least the message we got right. So now let's check the logs and see if everything went according to plan. So let me just fast forward a little bit. And now we finally get the nice logs for event data and billing data, and that looks amazing. And we did not get any errors. So it says that billing was successfully disabled. And I'm not sure what this billing info was for, but I'll definitely remove it from the code that I post on GitHub. So yeah, let's finally go back to our Firebase and check which plan we are at. And let me go to usage and billing. And let's actually wait a little bit because I think it takes some time for Firebase dashboard to update. And okay, I've waited about 5 minutes from the moment that we sent that message. And we have successfully downgraded our plan from the Blaze plan to the Spark plan. And that's amazing, folks. Mission accomplished. Hey folks, this is me from the future. I just wanted to quickly go over a few of the auto-generated messages. I had to wait a few hours for them to actually populate here in the logs. So yeah, let's just quickly go over a few of them. Let's analyze the event data object. We get the budget display name that we set up in the beginning, so cap Firebase billing cap. We have a cost amount that's the actual cost amount of my project, which is 0. A cost interval start, which is a timestamp for the beginning of the month. And a budget amount, which is the budget that I set up in the beginning of 10. And the budget amount type is of specified amount, and the currency code is of CAD. And as I mentioned before, these auto-generated messages will be published every 50 minutes or so. So we can see that here we have a message at 7:35, and then we have another one at 8:24, and another one at 9:14. And since we didn't get an increase in cost amount, we can see here we only got that 2 messages that we tested during the video, so we don't have any other further messages, no noise in there. And the only problem with this is that since messages are published every 50 minutes, there is a possibility that your budget could be exceeded right after a message has been published by Google Cloud, which in that case, you'll probably need to wait until like 50 minutes later for another message to be published and your billing to get downgraded. So yeah, as I mentioned before, not a perfect solution, but still better than nothing. Now let's get back to the video. As I said before, all the code used in this video will be published on GitHub, and I'll put a link to it in the description. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is something that took me quite a while. It took me like 2 days to figure out everything. And although this video might be a bit long, maybe it went a bit past 1 hour, 1 hour is definitely better than 2 days, so I hope it helped you guys, and I sincerely hope that Firebase starts taking developer feedback seriously and makes a simpler way to cap billing, because I mean, this was quite the workaround. But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun making this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone that subscribed to my channel after just one video. You guys are amazing. So let me just make a quick shout out to the top 3 countries that watched the last video. So shout out to my friends in India, Brazil, and United States. You guys rock. And well, I guess that wraps up the current video. So as always, I will see you guys in the next one.